So, there are a bunch of movies in 2016 that I wanted to review but just never got around to. So instead, I'm just going to give a general retrospective over 2016 as a year based on all of the movies that I saw. Now, I didn't get to see a lot of movies since I have absolutely no money, but here's the movies that I saw in kind of the order that I saw them, kind of the order that they came out. Kung Fu Panda 3. It didn't really do anything that the other two movies hadn't done before. The the antagonist came back from the dead. That was a bit different. Um, I don't know enough about chi and those types of things to say as to whether or not they did a dignified job of portraying it, although my knowledge of Kung Fu, was a kid's movie. What are you gonna do? It is pretty hilarious though that he met his dad, didn't realize that it's the only other panda for miles, and that it's his dad. He still thought the duck was his dad. I don't know if they were sort of going with the two dads kind of thing, but if they were, whatever. As a kid's movie, that's a kid's movie. It was a fine kid's movie. The antagonist was menacing enough. There was enough character growth. The other pandas learned about Kung Fu. It was fine. I did not like Zootopia. The entire message of Zootopia was either sexism or racism. Damned if anyone can tell. They hammered it in so much. Anybody who says that the message in Zootopia, that whatever racism, sexism, bigotry issue that they were supposedly tackling, if anybody truly thinks that it was subtle or dignified in any way, is a complete idiot. Furthermore, were the predators supposed to be blacks or whites? Because this is Hollywood we're working with, and if they're blacks, then that makes sense. That's why they're being discriminated against. On the other hand, the mayor is a predator, so are they supposed to be white? I thought white people were the bad guy in Hollywood. That's what all the movies, that's what everybody tries to get you to think. That's what they're trying to make it look like, right? Zootopia was nothing but modern leftist commentary. I don't intend on seeing it again. The animation was fine. That's one good thing I'll say about it. America! Fuck yeah! If you have actually been following my channel, which nobody really does, so why would I say that? You would see that Captain America Civil War was the first movie I reviewed on this channel, and I got the entire plot wrong, so I recently rewatched it with my family on Netflix, and it turns out Captain America was against the Accords because he didn't want to kowtow to the European Union or the United Nations or whoever it was, but Tony did. He wanted to put the group in check. I tend to agree with Captain America on this one, even though I think Iron Man is a much cooler superhero. But still, the Vision and Scarlet Witch. How are they gonna do that? This is the problem with wearing a mask. You can't see what the faces I'm making. New heroes, the Black Panther. She the only one introduced in that movie? Can think so, yeah. She was introduced in that movie. Although, seriously, King T'Challa of Wakanda. And people said that the gorillas in Sing were racist. It was a Marvel movie. All of the Marvel movies have been fine up to this point. I'm getting just a little bit sick of universe building now and how the Marvel Cinematic Universe has made it so that all movies that have a universe, and even if they don't, people come up with like the Disney and the Pixar theory where they try to connect the movies, and that just reminded me of this thing where I've come up where I want to disprove how people say The Incredibles takes place in the 60s, because there's a lot, and maybe I'll make it another video. But it was fine. Action was fine. Interesting thing, I had just gotten done with this field exercise, and I learned a little bit about tactical maneuvering. That opening scene where the mercenaries are charging the tower, I recognized what they were doing. So somebody did their homework for this movie to understand tactical maneuvering. And conflict was fine. It was fine motivation for both of the protagonists. Introduction of Spider-Man, nice touch. Ant-Man, fan service, whatever. I mean, that was a fun movie. Ant-Man was a fun movie. So I like that. I like that character. Fine. Ants and spiders. Are there any spiders that eat ants? I don't know. Of course, Hulk and Thor were gone, and I'm gonna get to where Thor was, I guess, when I talk about Dr.Strange. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I think I talked about this one before. Generally, you know, it was better than the first one. It was still Michael Bay though, and it felt a little too much like they were playing fan service with their characters by having the Krang and Bebop and Rocksteady, and they got that wrestler Sheamus to play the Rhino, but I really thought he was gonna be the Warthog, because the Warthog had that mohawk like he always wore in the ring. Also, didn't he have a nose ring? And didn't the Warthog have a nose ring? I don't know. It's not really important. They're basically the same character. They're just a couple of idiots. Although I think in the Nickelodeon series that they've got going now, Rocksteady is Russian, and Bebop was like this. It's like some kind of hepcat gangsta. I don't know. Still, they owe Black Nerd a royalty check for using his likeness for the character of Baxter Stockman. I didn't call it exactly when I said CinemaSins will say stealing, when April just takes things off the shelves. They did say shoplifting though, so we did call her out for it still. Casey Jones, thinking about it again, he's not Casey. One temper tantrum a Casey does not make. And he still felt too much like my brother-in-law. Personally, I recommend it over the last one. It was fun enough for a 2-hour waste of time with some popcorn. You know, it was okay. One of this movie's greatest weakness was that it was definitely meant for fans of the book. Now I can definitely tell that, especially with references to the chief of the tribe, of the Mbonga tribe, which is completely made up. The inclusion of Jane as an American girl rather than a British one, because you see, everybody knows Jane as a British girl because of Disney. And the thing is that I read something somewhere about Edgar Rice Burroughs was alive when they were making the first Tarzan movies back in the 30s, and he consulted on them and said that he wanted people to take his character and make it their own. He didn't want them to stay 100% of the book, and that's part of the reason why I've thought about it, and I used to care about comic book movies staying loyal to the comics, but then I've I've come to understand, and Batman is a great example of this, that the characters that people create in things like comics to get way out of their own hands. It's by the time somebody else does it, they'll put in their own adaptations and interpretations that the character you create becomes larger than anything anyone could have ever anticipated, and Tarzan is no exception. Thing is that they stayed closer to the book, and a lot of people don't get that. A lot of people haven't read Tarzan. I have. I did back in high school, just because. Um, I don't think a lot of Edgar Rice Burroughs books will ride with today's normal SJW Tumblr crowd. Um, just kind of the different times that the conflict didn't feel very compelling. I heard that originally the conflict was going to be that the bad guy was going to be gay for Tarzan, and that he was going to have a "if I can't have him, nobody can" attitude. That would have been kind of weird. I felt like the movie perhaps had an anti-Christian commentary because of the villain's use of spiderweb rosary beads or whatever it was that he garroted people with, and I felt like the screenwriters or the director was trying to say something maybe about religion's stranglehold on nature. My sister said she didn't really see that, and um, she also is the one that told me about that gay plot point that they were going to have, that uh, the I'm not sure if it was Christian groups or the Actors Guild or Hollywood who just decided no, that wouldn't be a good idea. Conflict, not very compelling. One thing that people don't seem to get, but they mentioned in the movie that these apes that Tarzan was raised by were not bull apes. I mean, no, they were not gorillas. They were bull apes, the fictional species of apes Edgar Rice Burroughs made up for the book. I don't see myself seeing it again. It was worth one sit through. Suicide Squad sucked! What can I even say about Suicide Squad that hasn't already been said? Jared Leto's Joker sucked. The editing sucked. The first half of the movie just felt like a series of montages. It didn't even feel like a movie. It made no sense that they went into their battle with soldiers and the soldiers were completely useless, firing into the crowd. Completely useless. Nothing. It did nothing. It did not occur to a single one of them to try to aim for the heads, but for some reason Harley and Katana and Captain Boomerang all think to aim for the heads, and they go in with this cover fire from the soldiers, just swinging her baseball bat. And I remember watching What Cultures, how they should have done the Suicide Squad. Yeah, Harley should have had a hammer, not a bat, and especially with the way they've tried to make Deadshot the main character. Will Smith just plays Will Smith in every movie he is in. He just plays Will Smith, and I was worried about Harley not being done right when they did the first trailer. I think they did it. I think she did all right. But Jared Leto's Joker, man, It was just such a disappointment. The way they went, the way before hyping up the movie, they went on and on and on about his intense method acting, and ooh, it's just like Heath Ledger's. And Heath Ledger's died. I'm sorry. After Heath Ledger did his performance as the Joker, nobody can top it. Harley, she did fine. Whoever that actress's name was, I really agree with what culture and how they said how Suicide Squad should have been done. Um, they should have redone it. They should redo it, recut it based on what he said. um, this was especially disappointing because the first time I heard about the Suicide Squad movie was right after I had watched Assault on Arkham, and I feel like if they had done just a straight live action remake of Assault on Arkham, this would have gone over a lot better. There'd be a few people bitching about how they just redid Assault on Arkham, but live action. Yeah, yeah, that would have been fine if they had done that. I would have liked it a lot more, and so would you. Doctor Strange was boring. A large part of that has to do with Benedict Cumberbatch, or whatever the fuck his name is, always delivering his lines like this. Okay, so maybe I'm not entirely fair because I have personal vendetta against Benedict Cumberbatch, whatever his name is, because my girlfriend likes him, and I get jealous. The way the fractal patterns in the movie with all of those intense colors, my god, it's just so intense. It's kind of sensory overload, and it really is like they saw the trailer for Inception and said, "We're gonna do that times a billion." But I had heard something about how they were going to explain the magic scientifically, because we just have to demystify everything now. But we got to see where Thor was in Captain America Civil War. He was going to study Earth magic, I guess, although they have that same scientific explanation thing for Nordic magic or whatever they had. I've heard several theories on how the Norse hammer is supposed to work, Mjolnir is supposed to work, and why Captain America could budget, why the Vision could pick it up. I I don't know. It's been my least favorite of the Marvel Cinematic movies so far. Of course, I do also feel like the Marvel Cinematic Universe is kind of oversaturating the market because we had Captain America at the beginning of the year, so we had basically we had our no, that was our summer blockbuster. Captain America was a summer blockbuster, and Doctor Strange was their Thanksgiving movie. So they're gonna be it looks like they're gonna be doing two movies a year, and since this is all owned by Disney, they're gonna have Star Wars at Christmas, which is very ironic because Star Wars has often been called the original summer blockbuster. Or was that Jaws? I don't know. Either way, those guys, Spielberg and George Lucas and all those guys, um, invented the summer blockbuster. Uh, I didn't like Doctor Strange that much. It was boring to me mostly because of Benedict Cumberbatch's delivery, and the fractal patterns kind of caused a little sensory overload. I saw Doctor Strange with Moana, and I was really more interested in Moana, which is also owned by Disney. So, and that came out around Thanksgiving. So we're gonna have a family Thanksgiving movie from Disney, a teen slash young adult movie from Disney, a teen slash young adult summer blockbuster, which I guess is the point, from Disney, and probably one more Pixar movie each year I can think of. We had Moana. Was that Pixar or was that just Disney? Was there another Disney Pixar movie just recently? Wonder how they're gonna fit that into the timeline. Although I don't know if it was me or my girlfriend that thought of this theory that what if Moana is actually a long descendant of Lilo? Wouldn't that be adorable? One of my biggest criticisms of this movie is that I actually feel like it could have been stronger as a straight movie and not a musical. Of course, they had Dwayne Johnson, so they had to have him sing, of course. But especially that scene with Tamatoa, the giant crab, that was just weird. Funny thing though, I could hear his voice and I could tell that was Fart from Rick and Morty. You remember? Goodbye, Moon Man. Goodbye, Moon Man. Yeah, that was that guy. And apparently he's actually been in a bunch of stuff and he's Canadian. Not that that really matters. Getting on with things. The plot was fine. Animation was great. I heard that they had to make their own completely new software to get the water effects. Um, Moana was adorable as a little toddler. I found Maui, I found the character design ugly. I've heard some people say that he still looks exactly like Dwayne Johnson. I don't think so. Maybe sort of in the pug nose. I had kind of wondered if the idea was that he was ugly and that's why his parents got rid of him, which was the same story of Hephaestus in Greek mythology, but I've come to understand that is not the case. I've said a bunch of times to people who asked me what I thought of Moana, it seemed like a fine Disney movie. I think it would have been stronger as a non musical. As far as their part one selling point, because it is a selling point of them trying to be all progressive, that they are including Polynesian characters. I say I don't know enough about Polynesian culture or mythology to say as to whether or not I think they did a dignified job, because it is something I look for when trying to represent a culture, if they do a dignified job or if they're really just lampooning the culture. No, they can lampoon the culture if it's a comedy and if it's meant to do that. If they want to be taken seriously, I look to see if they're doing a dignified job of portraying that culture. And I've come to understand from Gaijin Goomba, although if you've seen this, you've probably seen him. Uh, I've come to understand that they did a decent job portraying Polynesian mythology. However, not mythology, the culture. They really did a dignified job with the culture. However, they didn't stay entirely true at the mythology. Of course, if Hercules is any indication, Disney really isn't that good at it. Fine movie. I'd watch it again with the kids. Give it a watch. It's fine. Not Disney and Pixar's best, mind you, but still fine. Next on my list, I had Mrs. Peregrine's School for Peculiar Children. I saw this with Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. I thought Mrs. Peregrine was the superior film of the two. Unfortunately, I fell asleep because this was the drive-in and I was going to be driving home later, so I'm gonna have to watch it again sometime. Fantastic Beasts was boring. It's supposed to be a period piece and it's all based on the Fantastic Beasts book that was supposed to be a book within the book of the Harry Potter universe, and the selling point was to see these monsters that either J.K. Rowling herself made up or that already exist but are just kind of obscure. I don't know. The plot, I didn't really care about. The whole obscurial thing. Also, since apparently Americans call Muggles no-mages, although if if we did, why doesn't anybody say that? Every American I know says Muggle, because that's the word J.K. Rowling made up in her books. Anyways, three things I caught in that movie that I think were anachronistic. Hot dogs. Hot dogs were invented on Coney Island in the 20s. But I don't think you would see that in New York outside of Coney Island at that time. Smiling in a photograph. There was one picture I saw. It was the main character whose name I didn't give a shit about. His name, his mom, he had a picture of. She was smiling. Oh yes, and customs. When he was getting off of the customs and they asked if he had anything metal or any live animals in his suitcase, I feel like they probably weren't that thorough in the 20s. Maybe they would have asked if he'd have his shots, but I don't think they would have been worrying about anything metal. Other than that, it really didn't make any sense how the Forget Me Rain was supposed to work, or whatever it was called, how that affected people indoors, and how that didn't affect what's her name and when she kissed him, if that, because he was soaked, if she kissed him it would have gotten the water in her mouth, I guess. But what if I always thought it was funny if after she kissed him, she backed off and he goes, "Whoa, who the heck are you?" Anyways, I didn't like it that much. I wasn't a big fan of Harry Potter to start with, so the movie wasn't really for me. It wasn't a bad movie. It just wasn't for me. Good Star Wars movie, and this time they can't just say that they were just repeating the first one. I liked Rogue One, and that's about what I figured by the end of the movie was that, oh, excellent. They can't accuse this one of just repeating the first one. I've seen people saying Rogue One sucked. There's always going to be haters, but here's what I thought. Everyone died, so they took that big risk, and that's what it was kind of going on at the same time or just before the first movie, Star Wars. I refuse to call it A New Hope. So it was happening just about right before that, or a few years, maybe a decade before that. Although Princess Leia at the end did seem the same age, but yeah, everyone died. And when we walked out of that film, my girlfriend said, "Hey, everyone died." Everyone died. And in the original trilogy, nobody ever died, but in this one, all of the main characters died. So I said, yeah, this is telling the story of the bottom echelon of the rebellion. The original trilogy was the A Team, these are the grunts. In fact, I don't think they're necessarily affiliated with the actual rebellion. Of course, Blind Guy definitely wasn't. That's the thing. That's the thing. They have this blind monk character and Nostalgia Critic said, "Oh, what the hell? I'm just gonna call him Toph." But I watched that movie. I got more of an Ip Man feel from it, and if you don't know who that is, Ip Man, first of all, was one of the mentors of Bruce Lee, but he was a Wing Chun master in China during World War II, and I remember telling some people about the movie Ip Man before I said he was a Wing Chun master in China, and he was like the best in his town. And I don't know how it works. Just everybody opens up a dojo, tries to, or whatever the kung fu equivalent of dojo is, tries to attract customers, and also I'm really not sure how that works. If like you come, you pay to take the lessons, or if you come, you take the lessons and just honor your master. I don't know how it works in traditional kung fu like that. I mean, non-Shaolin kung fu. I don't know. Does Shaolin Temple make you charge tuition, or do you just have to prove that you're good enough to train there? I don't know. Yeah, he was a Wing Chun master, and then World War II happened. As you may well know, the Empire was always a analog for the Nazis in the Star Wars story. This time I feel like they might have been kind of doing Japan for World War II and the resistance that happened. Now, one group was totally terrorists. They were completely terrorists. I mean, come on, one of them was wearing a freaking turban. And for a second, for just 1 second, I thought the movie was going pro-terrorist, anti-America, but really, that group was kind of neutral. They weren't on the rebellion side, they weren't on the Empire side, they were on their side. The movie wasn't really for or against them either. I felt like they did a dignified job of that. Um, Although whatever our main character's connection, that's the other thing. Big complaint for me about this movie. I have no idea who anybody's name was. I did one of the best, stronger things they did with that in the older movies was that the characters said each other's names in dialogue all the time. You know, you've got Luke, Han, Chewie, Master Yoda, all that. They would always say each other's names all the time. But in this one, nobody ever said each other's names. And by the end of the movie, I still don't know what anybody's name was. I guess I'll learn when the toys come out. Which, by the way, I noticed this thing. There were gold stormtroopers in the movie. They did that to sell toys. Come on, they did that to sell toys. That's the laziest ploy to push more stormtrooper toys. Color them differently. They made gold stormtroopers, and I guess the Empire discontinued them after that because it didn't work. Also, apparently, they must have discontinued that droid that was one of the main characters. I don't freaking remember his name either, even though it's just a number letter combination. But oh, he was so great. He was so great. She goes, "Or I could get shot. Well, I'd find that preferable." Oh, he was so much like C3PO, but with attitude. He was great. Me and my girlfriend were laughing all the way at all of his antics. Oh, my mom said that he felt a lot like that character. I can't remember his name from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the paranoid android or whatever he's called. Oh, I'm so depressed. The one that does that. Was in that movie Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy felt very much the same because he got a glitch that gave him personality or something, even though like all the droids in these movies have personalities. They're really sentient. They're no different than human characters. Uh, I enjoyed it. My girlfriend. But here's the weird thing about these Disney Star Wars movies. Both of them, Rogue One as well as The Force Awakens. Both times, I really felt like it didn't turn into Star Wars until about 10 minutes in. Especially this one didn't have the text scroll. It had it kind of had a prologue scene, but I didn't feel like it was Star Wars until about 10 minutes in, and that's the thing. I showed my girlfriend the old Star Wars movies and the prequel trilogy, and she didn't like them, but she likes these movies. So I think it has to do with modern filmmaking style for her and substance for me because it's still Star Wars. It has the substance of Star Wars. And I think at the end credits I saw that J.J. Abrams did not have anything to do with this movie, so it's not him. It's Disney. Disney is doing something right. Star Wars itself became something bigger than George Lucas ever intended, and when George Lucas had all the control, he made the prequels. Fans hated it. Fans still hate it. It got out of George Lucas's hands, so he said, "Okay, you can't handle this anymore. We're giving it to Disney. We, the fans, have decided you, George Lucas, cannot handle this anymore. We're taking it away and we're giving it to Disney." Not really. I know he sold the rights, but this is how the free market works. We, the fans, decided that his movies were not that great, so he sold it to Disney, and now they're handling it because Disney just has the resources to do anything. And one day the whole world is going to belong to Disney, Apple, and McDonald's. And that's why it's a triangle. That's why the Illuminati has a triangle, because it's entirely controlled by Disney, McDonald's, and Apple. And all the YouTubers who have over 1 million subscribers. Because apparently, it's obvious I'll have to sell my soul to get any subscribers, let alone to get to the levels of PewDiePie, Markiplier, and I don't know, Matt Pat. But I guess I'm gonna have to watch 8 movies every May the 4th now. And rest in peace, Carrie Fisher. The last movie I saw this year or last year for 2016 was Assassin's Creed. For being based on a game that supposedly took painstaking effort into history, the movie was pretty fast and loose with history, and the reason I say that is because this movie was supposed to take place in 1492. The Templars were massacred in 1302, so they would have only really existed in fringes of what the order once was, and um, maybe within Masonic lodges, just whispers in Masonic lodges of what the Templar order once was. I understand that what the Knights Templar really were and what they are in the game is not the same thing, and that this Assassin's Creed gets into alternate history, but the idea of them being alive and well and out in the public in 1492 is ridiculous, and also that Christopher Columbus was part of the conspiracy. It is, coming from a historical standpoint, it is laughable to think that Christopher Columbus knew anything. Other than that, I've only played a little bit of one of the games, and it was the second one, the one with Ezio, I think, that takes place in Italy during the Renaissance. Um, yeah, it was my understanding that when our main protagonist is hooked up to the animus, that he's kind of sort of just lying there dormant. Not that he acts out the storylines like we saw in the movie. Uh, I think it actually would have been better if they had kind of stuck to that. Not shown him just sleeping on the animus, but not even show him at all. Just show us what happened back then. That would have been much more interesting than anything with the sci-fi technology. I didn't like it. I didn't hate it. I won't say that it's fine. It was kind of bad. Not real bad, just kind of bad. I feel like people who like the video games are gonna hate it more because of how much it deviated from the games. Apparently, my brother-in-law, who's a big gamer, was gonna see it but didn't. Um, I wouldn't recommend it to him. I wouldn't recommend it to most gamers. Although I guess video game movies are bound to flop. Although this is the least bad one that I've seen, and that that wraps up all the movies I saw in 2016.